What's up, everybody? I just created a system that generates 30 days worth of Instagram content in about 20 minutes, and it is pretty awesome, and that is what I'm going to show you in today's video. Because if you're like most content creators or business owners, you're most likely trapped sometimes on the content hamster wheel, spending countless hours filming, editing, posting, trying to come up with unique ideas, staying on top of the news, all of that type of stuff, which, to be honest, can get to be a lot to manage, especially if you don't have good systems behind it. And so in this video, I am going to show you my step-by-step AI system that can take your Instagram Reels and transform them into 30 days of content in about 20 minutes. The thing that I really love about this system, though, is that it creates high quality, unique content. So what I'm going to show you in this video is not only how we can scrape Instagram profiles to generate the ideas for our content, but how we can use a human in the loop system in order to generate unique angles and unique perspectives on that topic. I am going to give you a very practical system here. This isn't just theory. We've used this with clients, with myself. It's going to be pretty cool. And so stay around to the end because I will be giving you access to this system and I want you to know how it actually works. Let's get in and check it out. All right, so there's going to be 3 tools that we need to get this thing rolling. The first is some sort of automation tool. In this video, I'm going to be using N8N because I think as it stands today, it has, I think, the most extensibility out of most platforms. So we're going to be using N8N to run this system. The only other third-party tools really that we're going to be using are Google Sheets. So we're going to use Google Sheets to control this system, and we'll get into looking at what all of this is in just a second. We're going to be using Apify to actually scrape Instagram, and they have pretty good pricing, $2.30 to scrape 1,000 results, which again is pretty good. So we're going to be using those 2 tools, and then we're going to be using an LLM of your choice. I'm going to be using OpenAI, which we'll get into that stuff here shortly. And then last but not least, we're going to use Perplexity to kind of infuse our system with more information, right? And we'll get into that in a second, how we use Perplexity in order to really level up these reels that we are scraping. And so to give you a quick high level here on what we're going to be doing, I'm going to walk you through how this workflow kind of flows. And then we're going to go into each tool, look at the tool, look at the documentation, show you exactly where we're pulling things from. And then we'll go in and actually show how we're configuring each of these nodes to do what we need to do. And I'll make sure you have access to all of these prompts as well. The first step of this process, so right now I have it running on a manual trigger, which I think is fine for this type of use case. If you want to have it where it runs when you send a message from your Telegram bot or whatever you want to do, you can configure those things. But I think for this type of use case, if you're running it like once a week, for example, super easy to just come in and trigger the test workflow. Like you don't need to over-engineer this solution here. So the first step of this process is it's going to go out and it is going to use Apify to scrape some target Instagram URLs. So it goes out and it's going to pull all of the Instagram Reels from the accounts that we tell it to target. For every single reel that it scrapes, it is going to loop through each of them and it is going to first check, have I already scraped this reel, right? So say we're scraping on a weekly basis and we're scraping 10 reels per account and the account hasn't published more than 10 reels since last time we scraped it. We don't want to run this process and blow through our OpenAI credits on things we've already done. And so the first thing it's going to do is it's going to check in the sheet to say, hey, have I done this one already? If the answer is yes, I've done this one already, well, it's just going to skip it and go back and process the next reel and run that same check. If the answer is no, it hasn't seen this one yet, then we are going to go out and do a few things. Step 1, we are going to download the video. So we're going to go out, we're going to actually download that video from Instagram, from the URL that we scraped. We're then going to tell OpenAI, and you can put any tool you want in here. I'm using OpenAI because I think they have a good developer experience in general. Going to download the video and then we're going to transcribe the video. So we're going to send it off to OpenAI and say, hey, just send me back the transcription of this video. After it has transcribed the video, we're going to go in and we're going to send it this prompt telling it, your job is to take this video and your job is to do a few things. The first thing is I want you to categorize this. Is it a new tool? Is it a resource? Is it a news story? Yes or no. The reason we have this check in here is that if it's not any of those things, we might not want to actually run this process through. And so again, the reason that we're having it run this categorization is if it's something that's completely irrelevant to your channel, we're giving it a check to be able to say, is this something that I want to even record a video about? And if the answer to that is no, you can just branch off and exit the loop. Okay, so that's the reason that we have that there. So what we're telling the system is, I want you to look at this reel and I want you to give me some practical advice on what you think would make this reel better. Okay, and so it's going to pump that into this recommended updates field. And then the thing that I think is cool that we're doing is we're saying, I want you to generate a question that we could ask an answer engine like Perplexity that I would be able to then integrate into this new script that I'm going to build. And so we're telling it, go do that. So go generate recommended updates and generate me questions that you would ask to build more like statistics and facts and those sorts of things around this topic. And then we're saying, hey, I want you to specifically return your results in these field values. And again, the reason that we're doing this is so that we can determine if we want to actually run the rest of this process on this or not. And then we say, here's the text to analyze, and we're going to pass in what that script is that we got from the transcription. So we're passing that transcription in. After it's done with that, well, now we have the Perplexity question. And so we go out to Perplexity. And again, I'm going to go into the details of all of this here when we get into those tools. And we're saying, hey, I want you to help me out here. I'm investing the following claim. And so the claim is going to be that the script that we have. So we're going to say, hey, I want you to take this, and then I want you to help me build out research around the following question. And so, for example, I'm investigating the following claim, and then in our context, which we'll get into in a second, the question was, or the claim was that DeepSeek has some AI autonomous vehicle driving technology and has paired up with a Chinese car manufacturer, and that they're going to blow past Tesla, right? That was one of the reels that I had scraped. And so I'm saying, I want you to investigate that claim based on this script. And then I want you to help me actually research the validity of that claim based on the Perplexity question that we had the system pump out for us right here. So it goes out, it does that, and then we get a result returned from Perplexity saying, hey, here is what I found, essentially. And then we have citations for each of these. So here is what I found. Then we say, cool. So now what do we have? We have our old transcript, right? The person we scraped. We have our recommended updates from the system on how we should generate a new transcript and what they would improve on. Then we have more facts that we can use to actually make it better. And now all we do is we go out to the system and we say, hey, given all of this information, so given what your role is, right, you're a social media manager that creates great viral content, and then given our initial transcript, given our recommended updates, and given the new research facts that we just pulled from Perplexity, I want you to write me a 90-second script for an Instagram reel. And then here's what it does. It goes out and it makes you a reel. So after it's done all of that, it pumps that result out into our database, our Google Sheet, and we have that right here in column G, which is new transcript. And again, I'm going to get into how we configure all these in a second. So boom, we have this thing here. And now, like I mentioned earlier in the video, I think the real power of a system like this is this idea of a human in the loop. So we don't want to just spam shitty AI content out to the internet. We want to actually give our unique perspective on that topic, but we're using the automation systems to build that context at scale. So we're having it go out, pull the ideas, pull the research for us, and then let us say, well, what is our perspective based on all of this information that we're looking at? And so that is where we have this human thoughts column. And so for this example, I came in here and I recorded a basic text note. And so you can see this little tool that I have down here that kind of pops up and says, click to begin dictation. That is a tool that I use. It's called Whisper Flow. And so what that does is it will take your input from your microphone and it'll dump it out into a voice note that you can just like copy paste. And so that's what I did. So I read through the transcript, and then I read through what Perplexity had found, and then I gave my perspective. So what was it in this case? I said, so I think there's two ways you can look at this type of announcement. You could look at it and say, hey, we're kind of screwed because China's coming out with all this awesome stuff. That's what people like to say. The US is doomed, right? All doom and gloom all the fucking time. So you could say, hey, we're kind of screwed. Or you can say, hey, guess what? Competition like this is going to benefit everybody, right? It's going to benefit everybody. Why? Because now Tesla or whatever other US AI manufacturer or developer is going to have to beat them out, right? That's a win-win for everybody. And so that being said, I think the idea of cost effectiveness needs to be explored more because there's a lot of coverage on this idea that the DeepSeek model costs a lot more than they're actually claiming it costs, right? That's a big thing that's kind of in this whole story is that DeepSeek is basically kind of lying about how much money it cost to develop the model that they've actually developed, and there's a lot of reasons behind it. Whether it's the amount of GPUs that they actually had access to train the thing, because there's import restrictions, number one. And then number two, they didn't like train mass data sets more effectively or anything. There's people claiming that they just synthesized ChatGPT, basically asked ChatGPT a lot of questions and then used that to synthesize their own model, right? So it's like, okay, yeah, I mean, it's cool that we're giving this to people for so cheap, but don't pretend like it was this super inexpensive thing. I digress a little bit, but we're telling the system this, right? This is my perspective on this topic, right? This is my perspective on the topic. And so everybody benefits from this type of thing at the end of the day. And so what we're doing, again, is now we've put that into our database. And so what do we want to do? We have this little checkbox here. And when we check this box, we're triggering the final stage of this, which if we come all the way down here, it is this. And so this Google Sheets node is looking for that checkbox to be checked. And once it is checked, it goes out, in this case to Anthropic, just showing how we can kind of combine different models and things to perform different tasks. We're going out, we're saying your job is to take the script that I have, right? So that updated script that we had gotten from OpenAI where it took the Perplexity information and all of that and it made us this new script. And we're saying, I want you to take that script plus my human thoughts, which we put right here. It's kind of weird to make a column called human thoughts, but that's the world we live in today. And so we have this human thoughts column. I want you to take both of those and I want you to create me a hyper engaging Instagram reel based on that. And then I want you to format it so that it follows Russell Brunson's hook story offer framework. And so that's one thing that you really want to take into account when you're building things like this out. It's not just about automating something for the sake of automating it. These things become super powerful when you can, as an expert in a field, prompt things that you know work well and give really good examples and give really good frameworks to frame the data. That's where these things really start to level up. And so after we've done all of that, it pops us out this Instagram reel. Let's just look through the output that we got here. So hook, and it's cool here. You can prompt this stuff out if you don't want it, but it's giving you actual graphics notes. So starting with a dramatic shot of expensive luxury cars, you could tell it like, don't give me that type of stuff. I just want the script. I personally think something like this is helpful because this is something that you could give to your video editing team, right? If you want stuff to be done really well, you need to have those graphics notes. Or even if you were going to plug this into like an automated faceless system or whatever you wanted it to be, giving the system those actual prompts for the graphics notes is going to be cool. So I like that they did this, but I mean, you could tell it not to give you that type of stuff. And so let's look at what it gave us. What if I told you self-driving cars are about to become as affordable as your smartphone? The automotive industry is about to get flipped upside down, and here's why everyone's talking about it. Pretty good hook. And again, it's following that Russell Brunson hook story offer framework, giving us another graphics note. China's largest automaker, BYD, just dropped a bomb on the industry by partnering with DeepSeek AI to create what they're calling the God's Eye system. We're talking about self-driving technology in cars under $15,000. But here's where it gets interesting. While Tesla's been dominating the autonomous driving game, they're hitting a wall in China due to data restrictions. Meanwhile, DeepSeek claims their tech costs just 3% of what US companies spend to run similar systems. Joe's skeptical face. Now, I've got to be real with you. There's some debate about these cost claims. Many experts are raising eyebrows about whether these numbers add up. But here's why this matters to you. BYD is planning to roll out this tech in 21 different models, from luxury to budget-friendly options. The competition is about to make self-driving technology accessible to everyone. And now it gets into the offer or the CTA. The real winner here is us. It's you and me. It is the consumers. Whether you're Team Tesla or Team BYD, the competition is driving innovation and dropping prices. Drop a vehicle emoji in the comments if you'd consider a budget-friendly driving car for yourself. Let's discuss it below. So what we can see here, especially if we look at the original transcript, it took our unique perspective into account, where it started talking about how the real winner in this situation is us, right? Now, some things that I will tell you out of the gate I would do to extend this system and make it better. Prompting your individual persona, your perspective as a human being, how you talk about things, who your ideal avatar is, right? Who does your channel talk to specifically? Maybe it's super techie, nerdy people. Maybe it's you're trying to bring tech to the everyday person, right? You would talk to those two different people differently. You would use different language, and then you can fuse that with your style of speaking, right? How animated you talk. Are you more deadpan? Do you like to infuse humor? What is the sentence structure? How does your grammar tend to flow? All of those sorts of things are things that you could prompt the system and improve on this with. So where might you do something like that? Well, if we were to go back in here, this would be a good section to do that, I think, as just a really easy addition where we say, hey, here's your script, here's the human thoughts, and then here's my examples of how I talk. Or you could tell it, and you need to talk to this type of avatar using this type of grammar level and things of that nature. You'd be able to put in here pretty easily. All that being said, let's get into how each of these tools actually works, practically speaking. So the first step is this apify request. And so if we were to go out here to this Instagram scraper that we have, Apify is a cool platform because it's basically like an open sourced app development or scraping infrastructure. And so you don't need to be an expert to be able to scrape this stuff. You don't need to worry about how you're cycling IP addresses or headless browsers and all of this type of stuff. You don't need to worry about it. You just go, you find the Apify Instagram scraper, and you're pretty much ready to rock. So this costs $2.30 to get 1,000 scrapes. Okay, 1,000 scrapes. If you were to think about publishing one Instagram reel Monday through Friday, so 5 days a week for 4 days or for 4 weeks in a month, 20 reels, scraping 20 reels. I mean, the cost here is it's pretty much negligible. And so let's look at the way this thing works. If we were to come down and look at this, so right here, this is kind of the UI way to do this, meaning not using the API, but you're gonna plug in what your target profiles are. So these would be the competitors that you have or people that you want to draw inspiration from. You're going to say, what do you want to scrape from each page? So we want to scrape profiles, reels in this example. We want to scrape the reels off those profiles. How many per profile do we want to pull? So we could say, hey, I want to pull 5. Then there's a few other options here. And then you can come over here and you can look at the JSON version of this. And so this is going to show you, if you were to do a curl request, what does that payload need to look like that you are sending through? And so why does this matter? Well, if we were to come over here and look at the API definitions, it's going to give us what our different endpoints are. And so we can then pop out and actually look at any of the API documentation that we want to look at, and then come down here and we can actually build out this request in a more easy to use way. And so for example, if we were to go back to this page real quick, it gave us this body, right? So this is the body of our request to the system. So we can copy that and then pop back over in here. And then if we were to paste that right in, like so, and then give it the actor ID, which in this case would be right up here in the URL bar, pull that actor ID. And so it's saying, hey, go use the Instagram scraper. It's basically what we're saying right here. Go use the Instagram scraper. Now, the thing that is cool about this is it gives us the curl request. So if we want to really easily use this inside of N8N, we just copy that, pop back over into N8N, say import curl, and then we literally just copy paste this in like that, and then say import, and it literally builds out the entire request for us. The only thing you need to do is you need to come in here and add your API bearer token or add your API token and send it through in the request that you have. So it's going to have the actor ID up here. Everything's all configured for you. Literally the only thing you need to do is come through here and again, add in that token, which you can grab from inside of your account. If you go into your settings, API integration, you copy this, you come back over and boom, you just paste it in right here like that. And then you just hit test step and it's going to run through and it's going to pull all of that information in. Now, if you want to scrape more than one of these, you just want to add them in right here. So what does that mean? You go comma, boom, and you put in the new Instagram URL. So say this account was one that I wanted to, for some reason, scrape. I would come in here and I would just paste it in like that. And then if I want to do another one, do another comma, paste it in, and so on. You just continue down doing that. So we put in the number of the URLs that we want to scrape. And then the only thing you need to keep in mind is that stories, where it says stories down here, this is basically meaning reels. So pull the reels. And then this is saying how many per account do you want to pull, right? So this is saying I want you to go to each of these accounts. I want you to go to this one first, and then I want you to go to this one. And for each of them, I want you to go to their reels, and I want you to pull the most recent 5 off of that. That is what we are telling it to do right here. So then it goes through, it does that, and then we have this loop. You don't need to actually configure anything in this loop, okay? It's just gonna go. And then what are we doing? So let's go through this step by step. We're going to the Google Sheet node, and we're saying, I want you to go out to our Google Sheet that we have here. I have this one called Remixer DB. So what's the name of my Google Sheet? We're going out to this Google Sheet. We're going to the tab called Reels, which is down here. And then I want you to look up based on the column ID. So based on this column right here, I want you to go look in that column, and I want you to tell me if we already have this row created or not. And so this ID that it's looking up is the Instagram ID that we pulled from Instagram. So we're saying look up in that column, right? So look up in column A and tell me if we already have scraped this Instagram reel based on its ID, okay? So did you find it yet, or did you not find it? So obviously if we're running this from the start, it is not going to find it. And so what we are doing is in this if statement that we have, we're saying if the JSON request from the previous, right? So if you're getting no data in here, so if it's empty, what does that mean? It means it looked it up, but it didn't find anything, right? So it looked up, it went in here, it looked up the ID of the Instagram reel, and it didn't find it in this column. So it went through every single row 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, went through the entire thing and did not find a matching ID. So that's indicating to the system, cool, we're ready to rock. We're gonna go run this one because we haven't found it yet. And so just so you know, when Google Sheets does not find a matching item, that's why this is gonna be empty. So it doesn't return you anything, so it's empty. And so that's why we're looking to see, have we done this before or not? Then we come through here, and all we do is we make a basic HTTP request to the video URL. And so in this Instagram request payload, so if we go back to our apify node, and we sent this request through, if we were to go look at the JSON, one of the fields that it returns back to us here, so this is everything that it scraped from Instagram. It scraped the account URL, the ID, the caption, all the hashtags that were used, the actual URL to the reel itself, the amount of comments that are on this reel. It actually has some of the latest comments there. It has all of this stuff, but one of those fields is video URL, okay? One of those fields is video URL. And so if we were to go look at our database that we made here, one of those fields that we are kind of inserting, which we'll get to in a second, is called video URL. And so that's what it's pulling. It's like actually pulling a downloadable link to that reel. And then all we do is in this stage that we're in this HTTP request, we're just saying like, hey, go download that thing. So we're saying, go get that video URL from Instagram, okay? And then it goes through and it pulls that video and downloads it. After it's done that, it goes out to, we have an error on this one from one of our previous runs, but if we were to go look at this one, so we can say, hey, now take that download and pass it into OpenAI, okay? So OpenAI has a node, which is a transcribe audio node. So if you go, you add an OpenAI node, you pick the audio node, transcribe a recording, and then it says input data field name. This is already called data. You literally don't have to change anything on this node. It works right out of the box. You just pass this in, okay? And then it comes through and it transcribes it. So it's transcribing that entire Instagram reel. Transcribes the Instagram reel. Then we come over, and this is one of like the first places that we're doing some degree of heavy lifting. So we're configuring our OpenAI node. We're telling it, hey, I want you to message a model. You're picking your model out of your list. You can use really any model that you want to for this. You don't need to use a reasoning model like O1 or O3. I think that's a little overkill. I'm using GPT-4o. And then we're setting a few different prompts. So an assistant prompt to kind of tell it who it is. So you're an expert social media manager. that thrives on crafting high converting short form social media content. Pretty simple. You could beef this up if you wanted to, by the way. Your job is to take an input transcript from a short form social media post and analyze it for the following. Does it discuss a new tool or resource? Is it covering a timely news story? The result is true or false. From there, you should recommend the top one thing that could be done to improve the transcript and make it more engaging and valuable. Don't give boring generic advice like ask the audience their thoughts. I want practical, actionable, interesting ways to improve the content. The reason I put this in here is when I first ran this, it was giving me stupid responses that I didn't like. And so I said, like, don't give me responses like that anymore. I want you to like actually think about this stuff. Then you need to give me a perplexity question, which should be a question that I can pass into Perplexity, an AI-powered answer engine, in order to find the answer to a question that you think will improve the quality of the content. Return your output as following. Recommended updates, perplexity question. Okay, and then I pass in the transcript. So I'm giving this 3 different messages, an assistant message, user message 1, and then a user message 2, where I'm saying, hey, go analyze, this is the content. So that runs through, and what it pops us out is exactly what we asked for, recommended updates, and our user question. Then we go out to Perplexity, and let me actually pull up the Perplexity documentation real quick. Going out to Perplexity, and then again, we're just copying the curl request, right? Just copy that curl request, come in here, go to import curl like we did on our earlier node, paste it in there, and then it's going to build you out this thing. And then the only thing that's different is I came in here and I updated this message. So if we were to go back and look at this real quick, it gives us 2 messages, be precise and concise, and then it asks the question. And so I left the be precise and concise, and all I did was update this one, right? And so I updated the text in between the quotes to say what I wanted it to say. I'm investigating the following claim. The claim is going to be what that original 90-second script was. And then I'd like for you to help build out some research around the following question. And then I pass in the perplexity question, right? Just passing in the perplexity question. And then boom, it goes out, does its thing, and it returns to us a big validating piece of information, okay, in this content field. Now that we have that, we go into our final OpenAI node and we say, hey, again, you're an expert that creates engaging short-form social media content, so on and so forth. Your job is to take an initial transcript of a social media post and make the following changes. I want you to take the recommended updates, which came, remember, back from our first OpenAI node. Take those recommended updates and the research facts, which we literally just got from Perplexity, and write me a 90-second script for an Instagram reel. And then we say, hey, I just want your output to only be the reel. I don't want pre-text. I don't want post-text. I don't want you to tell me what you think about the reel. Like, just return me the reel. And then we come in here and we say, here's the initial transcript. Here's the recommended updates. And here's the research facts. And then again, we're just using the system to drag and drop what we want it to find. For anyone that's like a complete beginner with N8N, for example, with the research facts here, how do we actually get this in here? You're just going back and trying to find that node, right? So you can look through all the previous nodes that have run so far. And so if we were looking for the research facts, we'd go look for that perplexity node, which is why it's helpful to name things, which is bad practice. I did not name this. This would be named like perplexity node. And then we can come in here and we can see what was the response it gave us. It was right here. And all you need to do is copy this over and boom, drop it right there. And then it's going to pass it through for you. So really simple to do. And we're saying, okay, now go out and do all of that stuff, right? Write me a new reel based on all of this information. Boom, it writes the reel. And then the last thing that we do in this stage is we say, cool, I want you to go insert this into the spreadsheet now. And so we're using the Google Sheet, append a row. And then again, we're saying it's this sheet with this name into the Reels tab. And then we're saying I want to map each column, just saying I'm going to specify where everything goes. And so the first thing that we need to do is we need to give the ID of the field, right? We need to give the ID, which is the Instagram Reel ID. Then we give any other fields that we want to. And so these fields right here are just the column names from our sheet. And so ID, URL, caption, hashtags, video URL, old transcript, new transcript, human thoughts, status, right? Those are all just column names. And so these pull through automatically once you've connected your Google Sheet. And I'm just I'm dragging over where each thing goes, right? So I'm going in, I'm finding where's the video URL. That was in this one. I go through, pull the video URL, and just drag it over, right? I'm dragging it over. And then once this thing goes and runs through, it's inserting inserting, 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 right? It's just finding, did I do this one yet? No. So let's just go back and recap this real quick. Did I do this one yet? No, I didn't. Cool. Let me go out, download the video, transcribe it, make it better, get some better questions, infuse the better questions into the new script, add the script to the sheet. And then it just goes and it just loops this. So for every single reel that it scraped, it loops, 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 loops. And the next thing you know, you've got 20 different reels, which is a month's worth of content. Now, the last stage of this, very last stage, we have this checkbox right here. Okay, we have this checkbox. And so what this does is once we run this system for the first time, human thoughts is obviously blank, status is blank. And so we're going to go through each of these and we're going to give a little bit of our human thoughts on this. We're going to use this cool little tool to speak what our thoughts are. Boom, boom, boom. After we have our human thoughts, we hit the checkbox. And then what happens is that triggers this to run. And so this little trigger that we have down here says, I want you to poll the sheet, meaning check the sheet every minute on the minute. You can change this to every hour on the hour, every day on the day, whatever you want it to be. And I want you to go look in the remix database, again, the name of our sheet. I want you to go look in the Reels tab. I want you to look for any time a row is updated. And I want you to specifically look for where the column that was updated is the column called status, okay? I want you to look for the column called status, which is the name of our checkbox, right? I want you to look for whenever that gets updated, I want you to run this next step. And so what is that next step? We're just sending it out to Anthropic in this case, and we're saying, create the new script. Here's the human thoughts. Boom, we paste in the script, the thoughts, and then we say, use this specific format. And then it goes through, it does that. And then the last step is we tell it to update a column now. So update a column. I want you to go out, okay, again, into the sheet, into the Reels column. And I want you to look for the column called ID, which is this one. Look for the column called ID based on this ID. Okay, and what is that? That is just pulling through from right here. So if I was to actually just go run this real quick so you can see what that looks like in detail. Okay, it's going to run that through. Got to wait for it to finish. So it's pulling this value through from right here. So it's finding that ID. So when the sheet triggers, it pulls every column value. So when we click this checkbox and this thing runs again in N8N, it's going to pull for that row every single value that you had in here, right? And so we're just saying, okay, I want you to update based on the ID of the row that triggered this. That's what this is right here. So we're saying, okay, whatever column actually triggered this, this is where I'm going to insert the data back into, right? Because we want to update the correct row. And then we just put what that final script is that we get from Claude, and it outputs it right here. And then there you go. You got yourself an awesome content production system. You can use this to create massive amounts of content in a very short period of time. So I'm excited to see what you guys do with this. Let me know below if you think the video was helpful. Let me know if you think there's anything that you want to add on top of this. There's obviously a lot of cool stuff you can do from here, right? HeyGen, for example, now has an API where you can create avatar-based videos automatically from an API. So you could take this data, plug it out into an API, and have it automatically create videos for you on autopilot. There's a ton of cool stuff you could do here. But again, the sky is the limit with this stuff. Hope you enjoyed the video. I'll see you in the next one.